you are so busy, and it's really an honor for us to have this opportunity to speak with you. It's just that over the past year and a half in Hong Kong, a lot of things have happened. Before COVID, we actually had a good 6 to 8 months of social situation in Hong Kong, which means a lot of parents were already at that time considering their education journeys, right? Whether they should go abroad to study, stay in Hong Kong, switch to international schools, go to China to study. I mean, it's so polarized, a lot of the thoughts. And then when it came to COVID, the same question was raised again, whether kids are ready to go abroad or stay in Hong Kong, etc. So in any case, there are so many frequently asked questions that parents have been posing to us. And I thought it would be perfect if we have this opportunity, given parents cannot travel to visit schools themselves, to actually have a direct dialogue with the school leadership. And I'm so grateful for your contribution today.
It's an absolute pleasure, Jenny. And what a remarkable time, as you say, a confluence of so many different factors, particularly for Hong Kong. So I feel honoured and a privilege to have been invited to speak with you today.
Thank you, James. So, James, I have about 300 questions. But I've selected the most interesting ones to ask you today. So please bear with me. I have about 8 to 10 questions, and we'll just have this as a quick casual conversation. So James, I know it's COVID, and many schools in the UK and US have taken extra steps to ensure the health of students. Of course, we can never guarantee, but to what extent has Wellington introduced new measures to help limit the COVID impact in school?
I think every boarding school in the UK and beyond, we've introduced hundreds of different measures with the aim of our fundamental aim was to deliver as much of the wonderful, exciting, fizzy, transformational boarding school Wellington experience as possible, but done within government regulations and with the health and well-being of all of our stakeholders at the heart. So I think, like most boarding schools in the UK, we've operated for the last, since September on bubble systems, house year group bubbles. So they've dined together. Year groups have done activities and sport together. We've sadly had to limit the amount of inter-year group activities. We've completely rewritten our timetable and staggered. So each year group are in lessons at different times. They're having different activities at different times. We converted one of our big halls into a second dining room with a giant marquee that we've put on the back of the college to enable multiple seating areas for different dining facilities.
Very stylish banquet style.
Yes, exactly. As you can imagine, there's hand sanitizing stations everywhere. We clean every classroom at the end of every lesson, and we clean every dining facility at the end of every sitting. We've introduced our own test and trace system at Wellington. We've got our own PCR testing facility here, so we didn't have to rely on the government NHS testing system. We could just process our own and get results back more quickly. And actually, Public Health England, the local health watchdog, rang us up about 4 or 5 weeks into the Michaelmas term to ask us for our advice, because they felt that we were doing things so well at Wellington that they wanted our advice. And the record time that it took us to, when we had a case in the Michaelmas term and we were trying to contact and isolate all of their close contacts, it took us 14 minutes from receiving the positive test result to having every single close contact in isolation, which was absolutely amazing. For only 14 minutes. So
military style.
Military style. So and that's taken a bit of getting used to, the pupils and the parents, but there's a lot of understanding. Just on the testing, we've also introduced a mass lateral flow screening program at Wellington. So we have a giant marquee for that, and that processes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tests on a daily and weekly basis. We went, I think, above and beyond government guidelines on face coverings. So we are, because of our boarding setting, we asked for face coverings in more locations than the government guidelines recommended. And we've also been, if anyone has come down with the symptoms of COVID, regardless of whether they've had a test yet, we've isolated all of their close contacts as as a precaution.
Wow.
So when we have had cases, I think we've managed to absolutely limit the spread. And I think, like most boarding schools, we've stayed open in half terms, and we've offered quarantine at the beginning of for the 2 weeks before the beginning of half terms. Actually, this term we did it for red list countries in the UK and non-red list. So we had 2 quarantines going on in 2 different locations. So being sensitive and supportive of our international families has been at the heart of our strategy too, because it's so difficult to be an overseas parent during a global pandemic. And we're really pleased that this term, all but about half a dozen of our international families have sent their daughters and sons back to Wellington this term, which is, I think, a ringing endorsement of what we've been doing. But it's not just Wellington, Jennifer. I must hasten to add that the boarding schools across the UK have been working more closely together than ever before, and I think have been doing an unbelievable job. Some have even chartered flights from China to bring their pupils back, and amazing.
It's really commendable because, especially with boarding facilities, it's another level of administrative headaches when it comes to these crises. So with the students, I guess the learning has become much more online, right? Has the school seen any gaps in their learning levels or students coming into Wellington from abroad or from Hong Kong? Maybe the school provision in their original school may not be as extensive with the online teaching. Do you anticipate any learning gaps for the newcomers, new joiners in September? And if so, will there be any kind of support extended to the students?
Yes. So to talk about our current students, we haven't experienced a huge amount of gaps in their learning, Jennifer. And I think we were fortunate that we've been a Microsoft showcase school for 5 or 6 years now. And slowly over the last 5 to 10 years, we've been moving a lot of our teaching resources onto OneNote. For many years now, we've been asking all Wellingtonians to arrive with a Microsoft Surface, and they do a lot of their work on there. Our maths department, for example, doesn't use textbooks anymore. It has all of its resources and worksheets on OneNote. And so when we saw the inevitable arrival of COVID in the UK, and we knew that schools were going to be locked down, we opened up Microsoft Teams as a facility. We trained staff in how to use it. We introduced it to all the pupils. We ran pilot sessions and pilot lessons online, so that when Gavin Williamson, I think, announced on the Thursday that schools were or the Wednesday that schools were going to close down, then Thursday, Friday, all of our pupils went home or went to their guardians. And then on the Monday morning, after the weekend, we immediately went into live online teaching through Microsoft Teams. So we have managed to teach live throughout the whole of the pandemic hitherto, whether we've been open as a school or people have been at home. So it is not quite the same as being together face to face, that the relationships, the joy that there is in a classroom, a physical classroom is I think the pandemic has made everyone realize just how wonderful that is. But it has meant that we've been able to stay on top of all of our teaching. And actually what some of our subjects did, for example, in science, was that they realized that they weren't going to be able to do experiments online. So they taught different parts of the courses. They changed their schemes of work to cover more theoretical stuff when we were closed as a school. And then they've covered all of the practicals once the girls and boys have come back. So we don't feel that we've lost any learning with our current students. And actually, the boys and girls who've arrived at Wellington this year in year 9, so they missed their schools were closed for last summer term. They've been amazing. I would say they've been the best year 9s that we've ever had.
Wow.
And I wonder whether it's because in previous years they would have spent that term, certainly in the UK schools, revising for common entrance and doing practice essay after practice paper and not doing any new learning. And they actually arrived in September last year.
More fresh-headed,
excited to be back in school, really excited to be learning again. And they have flown. The interesting question, Jennifer, absolutely, as you pointed out, is this coming September for a year group coming in who've had not just one term of disruption, but a year and a half of disruption. So we shall wait and see. But fortunately, we have space and time within the curriculum in Year 9 in the UK to catch up. And if we find that we need to use some of that time to catch up, then we can do so either on an individual basis with pupils or maybe as a year group. But that's the sort of unknown question, or the unknown at the moment.
It's really impressive that the school is so forward thinking, that many years ago it's already achieved the Microsoft Showcase School, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about the Microsoft Showcase School, award, and also all the kind of tech and entrepreneurial initiatives that the school promotes? Just looking at your website is so fascinating.
Yeah.
So much bustle and energy just from the website. And can you share with us some of the highlights?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Microsoft Showcase School is a wonderful opportunity for us to. So we had to show how we'd embedded technology and the use of technology within the school and within learning and within our teaching and our facilities. And we gain access to new tech from Microsoft before it's out on the market. We're very often consulted or used in projects where they're scoping new tech. I'm sure that we're able to get to source technology and laptops, perhaps maybe at a slightly lower price than others.
Okay.
So it's really, really beneficial. And a really good example of the entrepreneurial spirit in this tech space. When schools were closed in March last year, Jennifer, we realized that we needed to build quite quickly an online platform, because we didn't just want to teach lessons when our pupils were in lockdown and at home, but we wanted to deliver the co-curriculum as best as possible, all of the academic extension opportunities, the clubs, the societies, music ensembles. And so our computer science department and actually a team of our sixth form computer science techies, in 3 weeks, they coded and built an online platform called the Welly Hub, which was this space where co-curricular activities could advertise their activities, where you could sign up to join the Politics Society or attend an online wind band, and where you could actually engage with other Wellingtonians in a sort of message board space to perhaps discuss. If you've been to the philosophy and religion talk with whoever it might be, they could then discuss and engage on that line. So that was an amazing bit of entrepreneurial spirit that they built that under the leadership of the sixth form computer science club and our computer science teachers. And we're really keen to build on this, Jennifer. We're thinking very much at the moment, even though the pandemic isn't even over, as to the strategic direction of the school moving forward. One of the things we really want to do is build a entrepreneurial tech space within the school that brings together design engineering, computer science, entrepreneurship, coding, web design, app building, like a sort of
all the 22nd century job descriptions.
This is it. And just let the boys and girls at Wellington be creative in that space. And, so many of them, as you say, are going to be, whatever they do, they're going to have those basic skills. So we really want to sort of build on what's happening now and ensure that we equip them with those skills moving forward. So, if schools like Wellington aren't going to produce people with entrepreneurial spirit, and by that I mean not just wanting to set up a business and make money, but actually being really creative, looking at the way the world is going, finding gaps and using their creativity to fill those gaps, if that makes sense. I
think it's such a forward-thinking initiative, because even 10, 15 years ago, I remember Wellington, when many of the other boarding schools and schools in general are offering skill-based programs like critical thinking, writing, reading, English programs. You already had an entrepreneurship summer program, and that was 10, 15 years ago. So that kind of enterprising spirit has survived even the COVID period.
Yes, 100%. And we need that spirit more than ever at this moment.
So James, we know there are a few very successful Wellington colleges as well in China. And it's great because we really see the synergy, the 5I identity also permeating through the family of Wellington colleges. So can you tell us a little bit more for Hong Kong parents? whether they should go to Wellington in the UK or Wellington in China. How does it work between the school campuses? And is that a pro for the UK campus?
Yeah, 100%. It's a wonderful family of schools, Jennifer, a really wonderful family of schools. And when we first went into this project back in 2010, we always wanted it to become a genuine family. Genuine links and collaboration and a real shared ethos and values. And that when you walked into a Wellington college in Shanghai or Tianjin or Hangzhou, you felt like you were in Wellington here in the UK. And back in June 2019, when I was just after I'd been appointed master, I visited all of the Wellington colleges in Bangkok in China. And they really do feel, you go in there and you feel the spirit of Wellington just infused in the buildings and the iconography and the messaging and the ethos and the values. So it's really, really exciting. COVID has actually helped us become even closer as schools, because the sharing of experience, the schools in Shanghai and Tianjin, as COVID hit there, they were able to share their experience of closing, of locking down, of going into online learning with Thailand and with us in the UK. And we've been trying for years to have regular meetings of all of the heads, all of the masters of all of the various Wellington College and schools. And we've been able to do that. So we now have sort of every 6 weeks or so, we have a Teams call, a Zoom call with all of the heads. And we were able to talk about and share best practice in how to deal with COVID or teenage mental health or the curriculum. It's really, really exciting. Where should parents in Hong Kong go? So we have international schools in Shanghai, in Tianjin, which was the first one, and in Hangzhou. And the next generation of schools within that Wellington College China family are the bilingual schools that are coming out, which are the Huili schools, which have the same values and ethos as the broader Wellington family. But they obviously teach a Chinese and a Western curriculum, and they teach in Mandarin and in English. And that fusion of East and West is super exciting. I would recommend visiting them all. We still, I suppose, have the advantage at Wellington in the UK here of being the original school. And we offer things that some of our international schools don't. So, for example, in Tianjin, they do international A levels in the sixth form. In Shanghai, they do international IB, or the IB in the sixth form, because that fits their settings and their markets. But at Wellington here in the UK, we offer the IB and the A level in the sixth form. And there may be some co-curricular activities that we offer or don't offer here in the UK, but which are offered or not offered in Asia. So a whole series of wonderful schools. And if parents are interested, they must go and visit. But it's a genuine partnership. And coming out of COVID, one of the things I'm very keen to do more of, and particularly now that Tianjin, and so Tianjin is 10 years old, Shanghai is 6 years old. So they've built up their junior sections and now have matured, and they've got very successful senior sections. We want to see more teacher exchange. We want to see more pupil exchange. We want to see more activities, Olympiads, trips amongst all of the pupils at the school, so that it really is a family of us all standing shoulder to shoulder. But it's one of our USPs, I would say. That there are a couple of other schools that do this, but the fact that this is a genuine partnership makes it really stand out.
But I totally agree with you that the dual curriculum, IB and A level at Wellington, UK, is really a luxury, because not all schools are able to afford or offer such breadth. And students might not know which curriculum is right for them at age 13, but when they're 16, 17, and having that option without having to move school, I think is really great.
Yeah, and we've got to a situation now. We always aimed strategically to get to 50-50 in the sixth form. And this moment in time, we are absolutely 50-50 IB pupils, A-level pupils in the sixth form here. So again, not only is it wonderful to have that luxury of choice for Wellingtonians, but the fact that we've managed to make both tracks really successful You might find some schools where 90% of the pupils do A-level and 10% do IB, or you might find some schools where they've just gone all IB. Whereas Wellington, I don't know of many other schools that I'm sure there are some, but to offer both really successfully and in strong numbers is we're really proud of.
Yeah. So James, a few pieces of news which have been quite seasoned in the UK, but actually a bit newer in Hong Kong, is that parents have been asking about university placements, because in particular, there's been news saying certain top universities, including Oxford, have been taking in more students from state schools, and parents are basically wondering whether going to independent school will provide them with the same chances of getting into top universities such as Oxford. Well, what are you seeing from Wellington's perspective, and do you see this trend indeed happening, and what's your take on it?
Yes, absolutely. So it is inevitably a trend. But I think there's a couple of things that's important to say. And this isn't a Wellington perspective. This is just in general, that we're very fortunate. We have a professor of world history at Oxford University who's a governor at Wellington at the moment. So he's very heavily involved in admissions. And I talk to him a lot about it. And he would argue very strongly that there is not an anti-independent school bias that has entered Oxford admissions. There is simply a desire to make the admissions process more balanced and fair for those coming from different backgrounds. So if you are good enough to get in and you're in an independent school, you will still win your place at Oxford and Cambridge, he would argue. But that
with a bit of luck.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, from a Wellington perspective, over the last 11 years, the average number of Wellingtonians who have been offered and taken places at Oxford and Cambridge is between 20 and 21. And over the last 3 years, in 2019, 20 Wellingtonians went to Oxford and Cambridge. Last year, 19 Wellingtonians went to Oxford and Cambridge. And this year, 18 Wellingtonians have got places to go to Oxford and Cambridge. So a small tapering, but actually we haven't seen our numbers fall off a cliff or halve or drop. So the right candidates with the right support, I think, still have as good a chance of getting in as ever. But it is a changing landscape, and perhaps I've heard Barnaby Lennon, who is chair of the Independent Schools Council here in the UK and used to be the headmaster of Harrow School. His view is that it's perhaps the more marginal candidates whose experience at a Harrow or a Wellington or an independent school helped them get over the line in the past. They're probably the candidates that might not just get over the line, but I suppose the strongest candidates will always stand a good chance. So another thing to say, I would hope, is that I do understand very much that many parents in Asia will be sending their children to UK schools with an expectation that a top university place comes at the end of it. And we have seen over the last 10 years that top university place might also be America. So our numbers going to America have increased. We send 25 to 30 to American universities every year. And actually our success at Ivy League and the top US universities, MIT and Stanford, is only growing. So we had 6 Ivy League offers this year, early offers back in December before the normal round, which is the highest we've ever had. So I think we're witnessing is that parents are perhaps taking a slightly broader view, and that it doesn't have to be Oxford or Cambridge, but Brown or Cornell or Stanford or another one of those top US colleges is a valid route too. So, and we support, we have at Wellington, we use external as well as internal support for all of our US and Oxbridge candidates. So we have an external company that comes in and does mock interviews and takes our sixth formers through reading lists and discussion sessions, and they do public speaking training, and that supplements the work that our departments do in academic extension for years and years and years in preparation for that. And the same is true on the US side. We use an external company who come in once a week, and they give advice to our pupils on courses and scholarships and colleges, and the difference between the big state universities and a smaller liberal arts college, and they do preparation for the SATs, and we're an SAT testing centre at Wellington. So pupils here can do all of their preparation for US university admission right here on the campus. They don't have to leave or go anywhere else. So it's a shifting landscape, but I think at Wellington we are weathering the storm is the wrong phrase, but we're coping with the changes relatively well, I hope.
Yeah, actually, is a very, very poignant observation. Even from our end, working with international parents, we see a lot of them quite focused on the region when it comes to boarding school choice. They want either UK or US. When it comes to university, they take a quite global mindset. Whichever jurisdiction, whichever top university in the right kind of subject alignment with a child, they'll be open-minded. And many parents actually love the concept of Hong Kong for primary school, and then UK for secondary, and you become a gentleman, become a lady, have a bit of cultural exposure to the European taste and style. Then go to the US for university for that kind of openness, entrepreneurial spirit, and that kind of like exploration mindset. So, and Wellington is definitely one of the top choices if that is a pathway they want to consider as well. Precisely because of the IB and the A level and the 5I entrepreneurial spirit and all the ECA offerings.
Yeah. We talk a lot, don't we, now about global citizenship, and quite right too. And actually, post-COVID and post-Brexit and post-Trump and post-everything, we need to foster that sense of global citizenship, more than ever, particularly if we need to solve some of the world's great issues. Not just COVID, but climate change, sustainability, food shortage, all of that. So I can see that sort of Asia, Europe, North American childhood into adulthood. What a wonderful way to prepare a citizen of the world of tomorrow.
Yeah. So you mentioned Brexit. That's also another FAQ from our parents. How do you think that will impact education in the UK in general? I suppose impact on tertiary education, and whether there's any impact at all to independent schools. What's your take on that with a macro perspective?
Yeah, it's fascinating, Jennifer. I think it is almost too early to tell at the moment because COVID has muddied the waters. So what's happened in tertiary education and secondary education over the last year and a half, it's difficult to unpick whether that's Brexit that's caused it, COVID that's caused it, or whether it was a trend that was happening anyway. So, in secondary schools, in boarding schools, for example, the independent schools census came out earlier this week. Every year, the ISC collects all of the data around independent schools in the UK, who the pupils are, who parents are, how many pupils are boarding, how many day, how many, what the fees are doing, how many children are on scholarships and bursaries, and they track trends over time. And over the last year in secondary boarding schools, we have seen numbers of boarders slightly dip for the first time in 10 years. And inevitably, a significant part of that is that overseas boarders have dipped. Interestingly, Hong Kong, as an area of residence, the number of Hong Kong boarders over the last year has increased, Jennifer, in the UK. Whereas China and Europe, China has seen a big dip, and that's very much, I think, from the public health situation. And Europe, a slight dip, but not huge. So, that's, I think, a COVID fact. Interestingly, within the data, the number of European families who are sending their children to board in the UK and who are living in the UK, that's actually increased by 2.5% over the last year. So there are more European families working in the UK who are sending their children to board at UK schools than ever before. So that seems to suggest that European families are not emigrating away from the UK and back to Europe. But there is a slight decrease in European families living in Europe, sending them here. So it's so difficult to unpick only a year into Brexit and a year into COVID to unpick what the actual causes are. I think if you ask me that question in 2 or 3 or 4 years' time, we'll have a much greater understanding of what the trend is. And my prediction is that neither COVID nor Brexit will have a long-term negative impact. I think the cachet and the offering of what a British secondary school boarding education and the excellence in the universities, what that offers, will still be attractive when COVID is not so much of an issue and when Brexit settles down.
Especially for a school like Wellington, where you have so many applicants going for one spot and it's so competitive. I think you will continue to get the best candidates worldwide.
Remarkably, the number of candidates that we had to join the sixth form this year, so we've offered our places for September, we had more applicants apply this year than we did last year or the year before. And the children who are coming have not been able to visit Wellington. They did their applications online. They were interviewed through Zoom, and yet they're still willing to come in September. And so I think we're lucky in that we are a school that is viewed as flourishing and successful, and we have the fortunate we're in the fortunate position to be able to select from a large number of applicants, and there are a number of people in the sector at this end, that consultants and executive search agencies, and who talk about the flight to quality that happens during situations like this. That it's not the schools like Wellington or the other boarding schools, Benenden, where your old school, Jennifer. They're not the schools that suffer at the chalk face. So,
in fact, there is definitely a flight towards quality, because it is these quality schools that have the resources to put together all these measures overnight to make sure that education delivered is still of the highest quality possible. It's really quite impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So James, that's $1 million question that I'm sure all parents ask you every time you meet them is, what's that magic element that you look for in a child at the age of 10, 13, when you accept them into the school? You always speak of the word, the spark. I really remember this when I spoke to you many years ago. They say, we're looking for that spark, but how do you identify the spark? What does it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the answer, Jennifer, is that it could look like anything, but we frame our admissions process in a way that we hope to get to know the child really, really well and get a sense for their passion and interest for school and for learning and for life around them. And that could be beekeeping and learning Russian, or it could be playing football and English, or whatever it might be. And we love children who love life and love school. And I think big, busy boarding schools in the UK, like Wellington, to really come and thrive and flourish here. We're a buffet. Our school is like a giant buffet that's got everything that you could ever want to eat on it. And we want children to come with a big smile on their face and try everything on that buffet. And of course, they're going to find things that they already knew that they liked. They might find some more things that they never knew that they were going to like, and that becomes that. But we want them at least to try everything and to arrive at that buffet with a smile on their face. And so we try and get that out through the interviews, but also through the group activities that we do as part of our admissions process. We run either online or in-person sessions and lessons and activities where we can see the children engage with each other and engage with tasks and with us, so that we just allow their natural way of being and personality and character to come out. And then it's difficult because when you have more children applying than you have places for, and actually you have more children applying that you'd like to offer a place to, than you have places for. Sometimes you have to say to parents, we love your daughter or son, but we just felt that there might be some others who are an even better fit for Wellington, and your daughter and son are brilliant and we love them, and we hope a place might become available in due course. But and that's a tough message to receive. I've got a 12-year-old daughter who's coming to Wellington next September, and we've and ahed long and hard about whether Wellington's the right fit for her, and we think she is, and that's why the way in which we do admissions and assessment is so important, because the children and the parents can assess us as well. So when they go through those activities and those interviews and the group lessons, we try and represent what life at Wellington is like. And as the children go through that, if it doesn't feel like the right fit for them, then that's a wonderful thing for them to discover too. So yeah, that interest, that love of life, that spark is something that we're looking for, but it doesn't come in one shape or size. It can come in many different iterations.
That's really true, because, you know, if you're promoting diversity, which Wellington definitely has and celebrates, then the child also has to be comfortable in that kind of environment and have that kind of confidence and courage to be different, but at the same time, also immerse and contribute to the learning. So James, last two questions. You will be ahead for another 20 years. So what is the vision that you're setting for the school? And the last question is, what advice do you have for parents?
Yeah.
In general.
We are in the middle of a wonderful, huge strategy review at the moment at Wellington, Jennifer. It's involved the governors, the senior team here. We're working with consultants, and it is so exciting. It's so exciting. It's sort of coming to an end at the moment. And I think the key thing to say is Wellington has become famous over the last 15, 20 years for being modern, progressive in the sense of wanting to move the educational debate forward, pioneering in the sense of, what we did with well-being and putting that on the curriculum, one of the first schools to introduce Mandarin, IBA level, internationals, whatever it might be. But balancing that pioneering drive forwards with our unique heritage and history that we have. And our unique history and heritage is one of service to others. We were founded by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert as a school for children who'd lost a parent and had suffered hardship. So that sense of fusing the future with the past, but in a way that is that serves other people and is for the benefit of we hope as many people as possible. That's definitely the direction that we're going to continue to press in. So everything that we do will stem from those principles. So I suspect, although I'm not going to give too much details at the moment, I suspect we'll be looking really hard at what we teach and how we teach moving forward. A lot of debate in this country as to whether, 11, 12 GCSEs is still fit for purpose.
I've heard that too.
Whether we should be, what else we should be adding to the curriculum and our offering in this side of things, and how we should be teaching. So I suspect there'll be some really exciting moves in that direction. As I said earlier, we want to create a space at Wellington for this innovation hub, this tech space, this hack space to bring entrepreneurship and technology together. Pastoral and well-being. COVID has provided us all with challenges we couldn't have imagined in that pastoral and well-being space. And so we are currently thinking about what does a well-being provision and a pastoral provision look like for the world of tomorrow rather than the world of the past. So we will be doing some exciting things in that area. And we also want to continue to lead the debate in education as well. So our education festival is something we're very proud of. It's something that our international schools have delivered to their context as well. But we want to take that further. So we're looking at how we might be able to set up a research centre, a school for educational excellence, where we can really engage with external agencies, other schools, universities, tech companies, whatever it might be, to drive forward the debate around education and pedagogy in the UK. So some really exciting things that I can't give full details of at the moment, but I hope that gives you a flavour of some of the areas that we're really looking at.
I think that's super, super inspiring, because everything you just mentioned goes beyond textbooks, go beyond the education. That's already given, right? Getting the grades, getting into university. But actually, what is it like to prepare children and teenagers for the world, right? Yep. And also, I think the world of the education industry in the entire world needs kind of engines like Wellington to drive thinking process and strategies going forward. So that's great to hear. So the very, very last question then. Yeah. I'm a mom. I'm a young kid. And there's so many mothers out here. We're all looking for the best for our children. And you're a father as well, and a headmaster, wearing lots of hats. what kind of general advice, not even about admissions or anything, but just general advice for parents?
I would always advise parents to balance the rational, practical with the emotional gut feel. So you will have a list of things that are practical and rational that you want for your child and that you want for you out of an education. And when you go and visit schools and you look around schools, you will obviously have your black and white tick list of whether they fit that. But there's also an emotional side that when you go to schools and you meet the people involved and you meet the head or you meet the teachers and most importantly, meet the pupils and actually see the sorts of children that are coming through this system and being produced by it, you will undoubtedly get an emotional reaction, a gut feel that, oh, this just feels right. Or just as importantly, you go somewhere and it just doesn't feel that it resonates with you or your values or your aspirations for your child. So I think some parents can sometimes be driven too much by one or the other, but it needs to be in balance. The other thing I would say is not to exclude your child from that, but not to make them in control of it, because children may just make a decision based on who's got the best swimming pool or I like the hot chocolate I got given on that open day. But we have very few children who come to Wellington, and I think it's probably the same at most boarding schools, and aren't wholly happy here. But when we have had those sorts of children on the odd occasion, it's tended to be because it's the parents who've chosen Wellington for their reasons rather than the child being invested in that and choosing Wellington for their reasons. So I would balance the parent and the child as well. So those are my 2 bits of advice.
I love that advice, and you would love meeting my mom. Because, no, seriously, 30-something years, well, not 30, 20-something years ago, my mom actually took me to UK to look at schools, and we looked at 6 schools, and she literally gave me a checklist. It was just like 6 to 7 questions, and I had to rate 1 to 5. And the school I chose, which was Benenden, at the time was not on her list of priority. And because at that time, ranking-wise, being an Asian mom, she went for the ranking, right? But I just fell in love with the cows and the sheep and the grass. And Benenden was so different, so refreshing from my local school in Hong Kong, which is a great school, but just very different. And my mom let me choose my school because she said she didn't want me to blame her if I get to the school and I don't like it. And it's so true, because the kid will always have challenges in the school. But if they make the decision to go to the school, they will take much more ownership in going through those challenges. So I love those 2 advice. It's much better coming from you than from me.
Well, next time I'm in Hong Kong, Jennifer, we must take your mum out for lunch.
Oh, she would love to reminisce on how amazing she was in identifying the best schools in those days. But yeah, and definitely I would love to see you again in Hong Kong. We'll have to see who hops on the flight fastest when the borders open, whether I hop on a plane to the UK or you to Hong Kong. So thank you so much, James. I shall not take up more of your time because I know you're very busy, and we really are very grateful for your time today. And I'm sure parents love hearing from you. And we hope to see you in Hong Kong soon.
Well, Jennifer, the pleasure has been all mine. It's always a delight to spend time with you. And I wish you all and your family and everyone at Arch every success for the months and years ahead. And I really, really genuinely do hope to see you in person before too long.
Thank you, James. And good luck to your daughter for being in Wellington.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, James. See you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.